Now our project's looking pretty good at this point, but if we wanted to further bring it to life, we could animate various objects in the scene. We could even combine some live video footage with this to make it seem even more realistic and believable. In this case, though, what we're going to do is we're going to animate this guy here, you yell, you kick, guy number 2, as we'll call him. We're going to animate him using the pool stick to hit the cue ball here. So the way that we're going to do this is by animating the guy using the puppet tool, and we're going to animate the cue stick using just simple position. So first let's select YYYK2, and let's go ahead and select the puppet tool in the toolbar up at the top here. Let's go ahead and anchor down his hand with a puppet pin, and maybe his shoulder, and maybe his neck, maybe his torso, and also probably down here on his legs. And then, of course, we need one on his hand to move the hand. This is the only one we're going to be animating here. Now let's move out in time a little bit. Just a few frames here. I went out about 10 frames. That's probably good. Maybe a little bit more, about 20 frames. And I'm going to grab that hand and move it back along the same axis as the cue stick. And then I'm also going to move out again in time, this time to about a second and 20 frames. And then click and drag his hand again on the axis and move it down the line a little bit as if he already has hit the ball. And you want to make sure that this lines up with the axis of the cue stick. So mine's a little bit high here. Bring that down. Good. Now let's back up a little bit. And we have him, we'll just scrub this. We see him backing up his hand and then boom, moving it forward and hitting the ball. Now what we might want to do is come back to this keyframe. Maybe we could just select this layer, hit the letter U to select all the keyframes, hit the letter J to back up to this keyframe, and then right click on it and select Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease Out. That way it'll go a little bit slow as it's leaving, but then it'll speed up as he goes to hit the ball. And in order for this to really look great, we'll have to, of course, go into the graph editor and play with those curves a little bit to make sure that it actually looks realistic as he's hitting that pool cue. For now, let's go ahead and close up that layer, go to the cue stick, hit the home key to get to the first frame. And actually, what I'll do is select the guy layer and hit the letter U to reveal his keyframes so we could use those as a reference. Actually, you might want to even close up this. I just need to have these as a reference. So I'm going to select the cue stick, and I'm going to hit the letter P for position and click the stopwatch for position. And then let's move out in time to where this other keyframe is. If this keyframe was showing here, then when we press K, it would jump to the next keyframe. Let's go ahead and move this cue stick rather, and actually I need the selection tool for this. Let's move it back in the upper left so it looks like it's still in his hand there. You may want to zoom in a little closer just to make sure you got this in the right spot. Next, let's go to the next keyframe over here. It's using the puppet keyframe as a reference, and then we'll move the cue stick to still be in his hand. And to make sure that they stay lined up, I'm going to right-click on the second keyframe and use Easy Ease Out on that keyframe as well so they stay matched up. Now I'm going to hit the letter N to set the end of the work area, hit Home, and then press 0 on the numeric keypad to do a RAM preview of our animation thus far. So now as we play this back, we can see him cock back and then go to hit the ball. Now there are a few problems with this. Number one, I think the biggest problem is that he's hitting really slowly here, which looks kind of weird. Maybe he's just setting up the shot though, so that's feasible. Another big problem is that at one point, just a couple frames here, this index finger, which is a separate layer, it should be in front of that cue stick, it actually goes behind it for a second. So what we need to do is go back to our fingertip, hit P for position, go to one of those offending frames, and adjust the Z position until it is in front of the cue stick for all of these frames. It looks like that just about did it. Now to speed this up, I'm going to select the cue stick layer, press U, and the YYYK layer, and press U. So we can look at our keyframes here, and let's drag those two keyframes so that they're closer, so it takes less time to hit the ball, and that way it will speed up that animation. And then once we get to this point where the ball is hit by the pool stick or the cue stick, then what we need to do is move the cue ball. Now it actually starts back here. So what we need to do is go up to the cue ball and select it and move it so that it is closer to where he's going to hit it there. And then we could go over to this next keyframe and make sure that they make contact. We might want to bring that up just a little bit there. And then at that point, at this keyframe, we can click the stopwatch for the cue ball, click the stopwatch for position, and then we could move out in time and make the cue ball move or whatever as if he had hit it. And again, we have the same problem that it's going to be covered up by the pool table as we move it. So what we'll want to do is adjust the Z position of that until it is in front of the pool table and stays in front of the pool table. Now, if we really want to get creative here, we could move this cue ball along the X-axis here and move it like behind Marion's arm or something and have it come fly out at the camera. Maybe the band's logo could then be on the cue ball if we wanted to do that. I'm just going to undo that for now. Now again, there's a lot we could do here, but let's just see what our final results are thus far. Play it back, he now hits the ball and it moves. Now it's a little robotic and it looks like it's kind of like sawing into his index finger here a little bit. So we might want to play with maybe the anchor point rotation of this cue stick. It looks like his hand and the cue stick might be off just a little bit. Obviously we could improve the timing of this and the speed of the ball, but I love how we've just really brought this to life. Very cool stuff.